They say you can survive almost anything in Hollywood except being laughed at, but for Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, the laughter isn't just a sound, it's the death knell of a global empire built on the shaky ground of professional victimhood. For years, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex meticulously polished a narrative of modern exile, portraying themselves as the ultimate martyrs of a cold, archaic institution while hiding in the lush backyards of multi-million-dollar California mansions. But let's get real. The shield of sympathy hasn't just cracked, it has completely shattered into a million jagged pieces. The world didn't just stop believing the story, they started writing their own versions. And these aren't fairy tales, they are high-level scorched earth comedy roasts. What began as whispers in the British tabloids has exploded into a full-blown cultural reckoning led by the very Hollywood heavyweights the Sussexes desperately hoped would be their new peers. When the industry's most lethal comedians like Chris Rock and Jimmy Kimmel decided to stop treating them with kid gloves and started treating them like the ultimate Hollywood joke, the game changed forever. This isn't just about a few punchlines on a stage, it's the systematic dismantling of a brand once valued at hundreds of millions of dollars. As of 2026, they haven't just lost their luster, they have become the industry's most reliable permanent punchline. How did the Duke and Duchess go from being the most sought-after couple on the planet to being the people that Netflix bosses reportedly find annoying? To understand this catastrophic fall, we have to look at the exact moments the mask finally slipped and revealed the calculated machinery underneath. The first real explosion happened in March 2023, and the irony was so thick you could choke on it. Netflix, the same streaming giant that signed Harry and Meghan to a staggering $100 million deal, dropped Chris Rock's live special, Selective Outrage. The world was tuned in for the Will Smith slap, but Rock spent a massive, surgically precise portion of his set deconstructing the Sussex narrative. He didn't just tell jokes, he voiced the raw frustration of a global audience that felt gaslit by two of the most privileged people to ever walk the earth. Rock took aim at the very heart of Meghan's victimhood, pointing out the glaring irony of a woman who hit the light-skinned lottery and married a literal prince, only to spend 4 years complaining about her hard life. The crowd didn't just laugh, they roared in a collective release of tension. Rock hit the nail on the head when he mocked Meghan's claim that she knew nothing about the royal family before joining. It's the royal family. Rock shouted, "You didn't Google those mother effers?" It was the question everyone was dying to ask. How does a savvy 21st century actress with an internet connection not do a deep dive into the history of the world's most famous family? Rock called it what it was, pure fiction. But Rock went even deeper, touching the third rail of the Sussex story, the accusations of racism within the palace. For 2 years, that claim was their ultimate weapon, a shield that silenced critics who feared being labeled. Rock dismantled it with ease, arguing that curiosity about a baby's appearance isn't a hate crime, it's human nature. By reframing their bombshell as a common in-law annoyance, he stripped them of their status as victims of systemic oppression and turned them into mere complainers. Imagine this scene. The Sussexes sitting in their Montecito mansion, realizing their own employer just paid a man millions to call them dumb and manipulative to the entire world. That was the moment the protection ended. While Rock was handling the Netflix side of the destruction, Jimmy Kimmel was sharpening his knives on late-night TV. When Harry shared that bizarrely intimate story in his memoir Spare about using his mother's lip cream on his frostbitten private parts, the world recoiled. Kimmel didn't blink. He created a parody children's book called The Prince and the Penis, a savage mockery of Harry's total lack of boundaries. Kimmel exposed the staggering hypocrisy of a man who demands privacy while writing 400 pages about his most private physical issues. The laughter was no longer coming from trolls, it was coming from the heart of the American entertainment establishment. When Kimmel compared Harry's looks to the character Screech from Saved by the Bell, it was a signal. The Prince title no longer commanded respect in Hollywood. In the eyes of the industry, Harry had transformed from a royal icon into just another celebrity oversharing for a paycheck. The saga doesn't stop there, because as the business empire crumbled, the internal culture of the Sussex household began to leak out again, and the details are absolutely explosive. As the business empire crumbled, the internal culture of the Sussex household began to leak out again, and the details are absolutely explosive. In late 2025 and early 2026, a new wave of staffing crises hit the Montecito mansion like a tidal wave, reigniting the Duchess' difficult label that has haunted Meghan since her days in London. A series of high-profile resignations, including their deputy press secretary and Meghan's social media manager, pulled back the curtain on what life is really like behind those high gates. Reports from major outlets like The Hollywood Reporter described Meghan as a dictator in high heels, allegedly marching around giving orders and belittling anyone who doesn't meet her impossible standards. One insider claimed that she simply doesn't take advice, and now the couple is reportedly terrified of what these disgruntled former employees might say once their non-disclosure agreements are tested in the court of public opinion. While their representatives tried to spin the drama as a simple transition to agency support staff, the pattern is impossible to ignore. They have gone through dozens of employees since moving to the U.S. This revolving door suggests that the problem isn't the staff, it's the leadership. It is fundamentally impossible to maintain a brand built on compassion and kindness when your own employees are allegedly calling you a tyrant behind your back. This massive disconnect between their public persona and private behavior is exactly what comedians like Chris Rock were mocking. And in 2026, the evidence is only mounting. Despite the internal reports of her difficult nature, Meghan has continued to lean into her role as the ultimate victim, but the world is no longer buying the performance. In April 2026, during a high-profile tour of Australia, she stood in front of a group of students and made the staggering claim that she had been the most bullied person in the entire world for the last decade. The backlash was instantaneous and brutal. Critics pointed out that while online trolling is real, calling yourself the world's biggest victim is a slap in the face to actual victims of war, poverty, and systemic abuse. It was Chris Rock's paper cuts analogy brought to life in the most tone-deaf way possible. People began to ask the hard questions. How can someone living in a $14 million mansion with private security and a global platform claim to be the world's biggest victim? The irony was further heightened by the fact that she made these comments while her own former staff members were reportedly seeking legal advice regarding their treatment in her household. A 2026 poll in Australia found that 69% of respondents believed the Sussexes had not been treated unfairly by the royal family. They aren't seen as exiles anymore. They are seen as people who are perpetually unhappy despite having everything. While Meghan fights the branding wars, Prince Harry seems to be fighting a desperate battle for his own identity. But the California dream has started to look more like a gilded cage. By 2026, Harry has spent a year in a grueling legal battle with the UK Home Office over his security arrangements. After losing a major appeal in May 2025, he is still fighting for taxpayer-funded protection as of March 2026. This legal defeat is about more than just bodyguards, it's about his status. Without official protection, he is just another private citizen, and this has reportedly caused a massive rift in his personal life as he feels he cannot safely bring his children back to his homeland. But the British public sympathy is at an all-time low. Most feel that if he wants the perks of being a royal, he shouldn't have trashed the institution for a paycheck. Even more damaging are the reports regarding his relationship with his family, with claims that Queen Camilla allegedly remarked Harry had been brainwashed by his wife. Whether true or not, the fact that these stories dominate the headlines shows how far the rift has gone. Harry is now a man without a country and increasingly a man without a purpose, no longer the war hero or the fun prince, but the man who wrote about his private parts in a book and is now suing his own government. The most telling sign of their fall isn't in the tabloids, but in the guest list of Hollywood's A-list events where the Sussexes are noticeably absent. In the early days, they were associated with the Obamas, the Clooneys, and Oprah. But by 2026, that circle has tightened, and they are on the outside looking in. Insiders suggest Hollywood's elite have distanced themselves for a simple reason: they don't want to be the subject of the next tell-all memoir. In a town that runs on secrets and discretion, the Sussexes have committed the ultimate sin by trading private conversations for Netflix deals. They aren't at the Oscars, they aren't at the Met Gala, and they aren't even at the birthday parties of their Montecito neighbors. They have become radioactive. People are afraid that an invitation to dinner will end up in a podcast or an interview. They wanted to be Hollywood royalty, but they forgot that Hollywood royalty is built on longevity and loyalty, two things they have struggled to maintain. There is a much darker side to this comedy of errors: the staggering cost of maintaining a royal lifestyle without a royal budget. As we move deeper into 2026, the financial walls are closing in, with private security costing upwards of $3 million a year, plus a massive massive mortgage and endless legal fees, the math is looking terrifying. They are stuck in a security trap of their own making, claiming they can't live without protection, while that very fame is the only way to pay for it. This has led to desperate pivots, with rumors swirling that Meghan is considering returning to low-tier influencer marketing for wellness patches and weight loss supplements. It's a far cry from the global humanitarian image they tried to sell in 2020. Once you become a punchline for people like Chris Rock, prestige brands like Chanel and Dior don't want to be near you, you become brand poison. Reports even suggest they have become the neighbors from hell in Montecito, requiring entire boutiques to be cleared out for a simple shopping trip, leaving the local elite completely over it. The lesson here is as old as time. You can't play the victim forever when your actions constantly contradict your words. You can't claim to want privacy while signing multi-million-dollar deals for documentaries about your private life, and you can't accuse people of bullying while your own staff is fleeing in droves. Chris Rock and Jimmy Kimmel didn't destroy Harry and Meghan, they simply pointed out the truth that was already there. They held up a mirror to the contradictions and the sheer absurdity of the Sussex brand. When the world looked into that mirror, they didn't see royalty, they saw two people who traded their dignity for a chance at fame and lost both in the process. Meghan Markle entered the royal family as Hollywood royalty and left as a cautionary tale. As she sends her jars of jam to unimpressed executives in 2026, the tragedy is no longer the cold palace. The tragedy is that she has become the very thing she feared most: irrelevant. The comedy hour isn't just a moment, it's the new reality. And as long as they play the victim while cashing the checks, the world will continue to laugh. The fairy tale is officially over.